Every one of us is unique in how we are, who we are, our personal history, our cultural attitudes, and so much more. Hi, my name is Ted Meissner, and welcome to Mindfulness Voyage. And today we're going to be talking about how neurodiversity can impact how we engage with mindfulness. Our guests today are Liezl Laidlaw. Liezl, welcome to the podcast. Good to see you.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
And Christoph Spiessens. Christoph, welcome. Good to see you as well.
Hi, Ted. Lovely to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about an area that has been often missed within mindfulness circles around neurodiversity. And the two of you have collaborated on really developing some tips and some pointers for those of us who may not know enough about how neurodiversity can impact how we teach. But before we go into that, what I'd like to do is ask each of you just to say a little bit about who you are and what you do. Christoph, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, happy to. I'm Christoph Spiessens from Belgium originally. I've been based in Manchester for 24 years. This is also where I host the annual Manchester Mindfulness Festival. I'm a certified MBSR teacher and supervisor. I also teach MBCTL. And yeah, very happy to have this conversation with you both today.
Thank you. And Liezl, how about you?
So I'm Liezl Laidlaw, and yeah, I'm not from here either. I'm originally South African. I've been in Scotland for 30-ish years, still an incomer. And I my day job alongside mindfulness teaching is online therapy for ADHDers, and my business is called Rewire Therapy. But Christoph and I collaborate on the neurodivergent stuff when it comes to mindfulness because that's where our work overlaps.
Thank you for that. And that's actually a perfect segue into my next question is how did you two connect around this need for more information around neurodiversity? And Lisa, maybe we can start with you on this one.
Oh, I was hoping to give that to Christoph, but okay. So I am neurodivergent myself. I don't think the kid is going to mind. I have a kid that is neurodivergent too, and they're actually diagnosed, whereas I am not. Um, and the people I work with in therapy are mostly neurodivergent, mostly ADHDers. And when I learned mindfulness for myself, I didn't know I was neurodivergent yet. I just knew that I wasn't connecting with it in exactly the same way as other people did. And after that, I trained to be as trained to be a therapist. And after that, I recognized myself as neurodivergent after the kid had got a diagnosis. And so all of this learning about it for myself meant that I had to come up with understanding the whole thing for myself and then how I might adapt that for people that I was teaching and also in therapy. Um, and so I started talking about that on places like LinkedIn and so on. And that's where Christoph and I met. And here, you want to hear this bit?
Thank you. And you bring up a very important aspect to this, which is someone may or may not have a formal diagnosis and still find some neurodivergent needs that are not being met. And this
Yeah.
is where this training can help a great deal. This awareness is certainly necessary. Christoph, how about for you? What brought you to this and the development of what we're going to be talking about today?
So, at the International Conference on Mindfulness back at Bangor in 2024, where I met you in person, Ted, which was lovely, I spoke to somebody who was interested in taking an MBSR course with me and disclosed to me that they were neurodivergent. And based on what they were sharing with me in terms of expectations and ways of being in a group format in particular, it very soon became clear to me that things were going to look very different, and I was going to have to communicate certain aspects of the course in a different way and really tailor it. And then I thought, oh my goodness, All of a sudden, I'm not feeling all that confident anymore. And it was a huge learning curve, but I'm really, really grateful for it because it did indeed mean that I had to change my ways of teaching, unlearn, relearn, find out things about myself, not too dissimilar from the dynamic in the way that Liezl was describing. When we find out about somebody else, we learn about ourselves as well. So there was a huge deal of learning going on for me personally and professionally. I facilitated the course. I'm pleased to say it went really well. There were quite a few neurodivergent participants on that particular course. And then I wrote about that experience on LinkedIn. And that's where Liezl then sort of found my post. We weren't connected at that time and said something very interesting. Um, I'd like to learn a little bit more about what you learned because nothing about us without us. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? And like, who am I to talk about this stuff? And we set up a Zoom call and we pretty much clicked immediately. And then, yeah, that led to where we are today. We are both very passionate about helping fellow teachers teach in more neuro-affirming ways. And so we've created, in one of the ways that we do that we offer that support is by this resource that we have created specifically for mindfulness teachers. So yeah, that's the backstory.
Thank you for that. And the phrase you used, I think, is one of the ones I want to highlight in this conversation is neuro-affirming. And because there's always this idea that we have in formal secular mindfulness programs, a phrase I'm not really keen on, which is there's more right with you than wrong with you, which still has that implication there's still stuff wrong with you. And instead having this idea that you are as you are, and that it's not just the adjustments of those of us who may have some variance with a standard bell curve, that there's a problem with us and that we need to adapt instead of there's a meeting in the middle. There can be both. And so what I'm curious about is this initial conversation leading to, as you mentioned, where we are today with a book that is a guide and introduction to these different concepts. What was it like for each of you in this learning process around it before we go into the specifics of the different spokes of the wheel? And Christoph, I'm wondering if we could start with you on this one.
What was it like? That was the question,
Yeah.
right? Two words come to mind immediately. Fun, a great deal of fun working with Liezl and getting to know Liezl better and through that dynamic, getting to know myself better. That keeps coming back as a theme. And frustrating, on the other hand, because it's sensitive territory and uncomfortable and I'm glad that I experienced that because that's the exact stuff that we want to help mindfulness teachers with. And help them do battle with, so to speak. By the way, using metaphors is one of these things that I've learned that may or may not land with neurodivergent participants. And so whether they do or they don't, that's not so much the thing. It's about having the awareness that the words that you're speaking may not reach the participant. And so it's small things like that and things that you think, well, that makes perfect sense. But actually, yeah, well, then why don't we do it more often? So yeah, fun and frustrating, but more fun, maybe more frustrating. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking. Liezl, how about you?
Liesl, how about you? I did want to mention one thing, this things not landing in a way we may intend. There's so many factors leading to that. Personal history, cultural awareness, neurodiversity, a whole bunch of different things make it more complex. And you're right, that can be both fun and frustrating for all concerned. Thank you, Christoph. Liesl, how about for you? What was it like, just the experience of working together and mapping this territory?
Well, I think that thing that Christoph just said about the what's the word? I'm so sorry. Metaphors not necessarily landing. It became very clear that you don't have to cut metaphors out forever. You could have a metaphor as long as at the same time you give an explanation for what's going on. You know, you don't become less fun when you're making it clear to everyone what's going on. But that came through the learning for myself and uh, the whole learning for myself was a bit scary, to be fair, because learning about myself and then recognizing how I needed to adapt things for ADHDers who were coming to my mindfulness courses came with, and do I have permission to do this? Come on. I mean, the organizations I've learned all this stuff of, and then there's the whole Buddhist tradition of thousands of years. What permission do I have to go meddling with that stuff and calling it something that I have any kind of authority over? And I'm delighted that my supervisor put me right on that and went, it's all just a way in. So actually, if you can find ways that support yourself and other people into this way in, you're doing the work. And so that gave me permission to have a go, try things out, see what landed for me, see what landed for other people as we did it, and always confirm that this is what I offer in a menu now, and maybe next week I'll do something different because maybe next week I'll know something that I didn't know this week. So if
Yeah.
you know something that doesn't work for you, tell me, or if you know something that really works for you, tell me. Let's do it together.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you, Liezl. So I want to start to learn a little bit more about the seven spokes of the skillful teaching wheel. And rather than have it be a listing of all of the different areas, I'm wondering if maybe each of you can think of what is just one of those spokes that spoke to you during the process, that's most meaningful to you, or maybe most challenging for you. What is just one of those spokes that you want to talk about a little bit, or maybe that you don't want to talk about a little bit, and there's some reason to share about that? It's totally your choice around what that might be. Liezl, for you, we
Yeah,
start with you on this one.
sure. I am digging about my paperwork just now because actually there are so many that I love them all. I'm just trying to see which one I like most. Um, I think the way we set it up is to start with before you've even advertised the course and work our way through it. That's what the seven spokes are set up. But saying to pick a favorite is a bit unfair, Ted, because these are like my children. Um, and yet you've told me to do it, and I like to follow rules, so here we go. Um, I think I think conveying is my favorite. Conveying is about access. It's about respecting that we are all different, no matter how we are different, right? People are different anyway, without even taking neurodiversity into consideration. And if we don't respect that as different being, now I'm saying normal, um, different is part of being human. And therefore, if we want to be respectful, we need to understand how we're different and respect that. And so whether it means using different words that may not bring obstacles for the people in front of us, then let's do that if we can, right? If we already know about it, why don't we? Um, if, for example, the people in front of me know more about something than I do, well, in fact, the people in front of me will invariably know more about stuff than I do because we're different people. So why don't we co-create as we go? Why don't we allow those people as much authority in the situation as I have as a teacher? While I bring safety and structure and whatnot, but bring them into it. So conveying is my favorite. It's about making sure that we use the structure we've got for safety, not as an obstacle.
Yeah, beautifully said again. And thank you. I like conveying as well. That is, they're not my children, so I can pick favorite. That is one of the ones that speaks to me most because of the accessibility that brings with it, and that this is a territory that is very familiar. And how do we do our best? Not be perfect on it. Of course, with the variability of human beings, it's difficult to always hit the mark exactly. But to be able to have that awareness, to do our best, and conveying, I think really conveys that one very well. Christoph, how about for you? What is one that speaks to you most in some way?
I'm mindfully noticing that conveying is also my favorite spoke. So I'm like, oh, shoot, that one's gone, that one's taken. So I think very closely related to conveying and making sure that these course themes and session themes are accessible is the spoke of considering. And considering is our equivalent to domain one of the MBI tag. And for listeners who are not necessarily familiar with the MBI tag, the mindfulness-based interventions, teaching assessment criteria, which is always a mouthful. So it has 6 domains. We have our equivalent through the 7 spokes of the mindful teaching wheel, with the first spoke being the spoke called compass, because it sets the direction for all of the other spokes. So that's the background. But my favorite quote unquote spoke would be considering, which, as I said, lines up or maps onto domain 1. And really, when it comes to neuroaffirming teaching, is all about respecting people's autonomy. Whereas, and it's really, really tricky, and I need to hold this and we want to hold this very mindfully. We don't want to say one bad word about the MBI tag. We love the MBI tag. That's why we're here approaching this through our lens of the MBI tag. And at the same time, it tells us teachers to do it one certain way. For example, in domain 1, there's a curriculum, there's pacing, there's organization of your documents, and it has to be a certain way, so to speak, or broadly speaking. But when it comes with working with, serving with, having the honor of working with neurodivergent participants, it's really about appreciating that we can have all that stuff lined up and ready and prepared, and that things may well take a very different course, because what we want to really foreground and spotlight is our participants' autonomy. And so working with at a pace that is good for them, and that can really show up in small moments. To give you a practical example, we might have a poem ready at the end or at some point during the session, and then we had planned that would take 2 minutes, and then we would move on and da. But it is my experience that some people will really sit with the content of that poem and are in that moment not ready nor willing or whatever to move forward. And then you can have the most perfectly outlined lesson program. You're actually doing, not only are you doing the people a disservice, you're actually being rude if you were then to move on when somebody is not ready to move on, because none of the learning after that is going to happen pretty much. So, and that is just one aspect of the considering spoke. So there's way more to this, but so considering, which is all about honoring autonomy, hugely important. So yeah, that.
And that's such an important consideration, that each spoke is not just one thing. Here's that one or two words describing it. Checkbox. Okay, I understand that. There is great depth and layers to each of these, and that they
There
are
is,
not in.
and we
Go
do have.
ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. We have a guiding word for each of the spokes, to in an attempt to somehow summarize it or condense it a little bit. But you're very, very right. It's very it's multifaceted. Yeah.
Yeah. and not in conflict with things like the MBI TAC or trauma
No,
sensitive
no.
mindfulness or other aspects,
Mm-mm.
that these are all complementary towards really what I see as the end goal of going through some form of mindfulness training, education sessions, whatever it happens to be, is beneficial outcomes for those who participate in these. And that's in service of that. So with the complexities and the needs of honoring where people are coming from, their
Mm.
situations, where they are on any given day, because it's not always the same every single day. What are some things that you would like to see teachers within the field of mindfulness learning about and understanding maybe a little bit more than we're seeing it today? What are some of the gaps that you would like to see shifting? Christoph, starting with you, and I know that's a complex question, so ask more if it's not being clear, if I'm not being clear about it.
No, it's a lovely question, and it's a very useful question to ask ourselves as teachers. And the first thing I would say is that this is going to be an ongoing inquiry. Because what Liezl and I are bringing to the table, sea metaphor, and maybe not even the best one within a bigger and other contexts. So what we're bringing to the conversation is what we're bringing now, based on what we know now, and that we allow for that to evolve as it should. Really reconnect with what it is that you're teaching. What are the themes? What are some of the mechanisms, if you wish, the concepts that you're trying to communicate, be that through your own passion or through the curriculum or both. And then sort of metaphor coming up, stepping back and pondering how you're going to get those concepts across. What might be blockages, what might be obstacles. Also so that's sort of if you're communicating theoretical concepts, the didactical pieces, but also when we're guiding practices, where might you want to look into changing or adapting your guidance, moving away from the familiarity of and some of that rich language that we tend to use in the mindfulness world, which, as it turns out, to many people means very, very little, and it's really difficult to connect to. So, yeah, constantly inquiring in what am I teaching and how am I teaching it, and how might it be interpreted. And a word that I've got right here in my ear ringing is permission. Is permission, giving yourself permission as teachers to try something new, to fail, which we will, and permission to experiment. So these are just some of the things that I wanted to share.
I agree. There seems to sometimes be a bit of a challenge to innovating within a particular curriculum, and that there need to be new ways to be able to meet the needs of the people who come to a course. That don't mean changing the fundamental structure, but how we communicate that and how we help
Mm.
land these ideas and practices in ways that are going to be effective for those who have come to us for it. Thank you for that. And Liezl, how about for you?
I feel cheated. That's exactly what I wanted to say. But also, I could be grateful because it means we're absolutely on the same page, right? We agree on how this goes. Okay, so yeah, permission really is it, right? Because things like the order in which your practices are going to go um, may feel like something that is written in stone, another metaphor, not allowed to be changed. Um, Yeah, I know you can laugh, but we can barely say two words without using a metaphor and then having to explain it. Um, and yet, when I teach ADHDers, I know that rejection sensitivity is high on the agenda, right? There's a high chance folks in my class who are ADHDers have had plenty of rejection in their lives and don't need to feel it here. And yet, there's high opportunity for them to feel it here because we're about to introduce new things. And when we introduce new things, we start judging ourselves very often. I mean, I can speak for myself here, and that's about 100% of a chance, right? And so if we don't bring in practices that help with that earlier on, actually, my people, my ADHDers, may not be able to last the course until we get to those practices. So for me, I bring in a bit of self-compassion break way earlier than it says in the learning that you should. And I explain when I do it that if you ever have attended another course or if you're ever going to attend another course, be aware that we've jiggled this around a little, but here's the reason why we're doing that, because I want to make sure you've got tools to support yourself when the tough stuff comes up, because tough stuff comes up while we learn mindfulness. And so giving myself permission to do that, um, I'm getting away with it. And and giving my participants permission to choose what really works for them. So, for example, if right now sitting down doesn't feel like your body wants to do it, great. What about standing? What about lying down? What about walking about? As long as you're doing it safely and it's supporting the intention that you're setting with what you're doing and the motivation for what we're doing right now, give yourself permission. You can do this. And so the teacher gets to learn to give themselves permission, and this could be hard, sitting with participants choosing for themselves as well, maybe not doing what you're about to suggest. That's hard.
Yeah, and so timely. I have a supervision session that I'm supervising someone later on today, and that exact point you just made, Liezl, about this may go in a way that is different from our expectations, from
Yeah.
our planned structure of, oh, we're going to talk about this, and this is what's going to come up, and that will be my ability to share. No, it may be something else, and that doesn't mean that's a lesser or bad or wrong. It's just a different way in which things are showing up. What's it like to explore that? What is it like to shift from our own judgments about it as teachers, like, oh, this isn't going well, to being curious about, ooh, what might we learn from this new, different way I hadn't considered because I'm just one person.
Mhm.
There are lots of others here too.
Yeah.
A last question, because I want to be respectful of your time today. And that is, as you look towards the near term future, what would you like to see happen with these ideas around neuro affirming practices and learnings and awareness in mindfulness? What is something that you would like to see get a little more attention in the next couple of years? Liezl, can we start with you on this one?
Oh, good, because Christoph would just say something brilliant and then I wouldn't have anything to say. Um, thank you. Follow this, Christoph. Um, well, for me, I kind of hope that Christoph and I are going to be redundant soon. I kind of hope that it becomes so obvious that neurodiversity is part of the whole DEI environment that we just learn that humans are different and that's okay. And we better find out how people are different so that we can make it possible for everyone to access what we need to give them. In the same way as when you build a ramp next to a set of steps, not everyone who uses that ramp is necessarily going to be a wheelchair user. It benefits everyone. So why would we not just do it? And not everyone, when it comes to neurodiversity, not everyone's aware of their um, neurotype, right? So I got to near enough 50, in fact, past 50 before I had an idea. And so that's 5 decades of not knowing and not understanding what was influencing my life and where I could do with some support, etc. So if someone happened to just put that support in front of me, I'd go, oh yeah, actually, I'll do that. As opposed to, I need it, please, can I have it? Because I wouldn't know. I would just struggle along.
Thank you. Christoph, how about for you?
My hope is that neuro-affirming teaching is integrated more explicitly in official teacher training curricula. My hope is also that it can become a part of a systemic change, because this links to, so obviously I agree wholeheartedly with what Liezl is saying, and at the same time, and it really is an and, it's not a but, it really is an and. There's always this risk of, in the same way that some people might say, all lives matter, it's not just Black lives matters. Yes, that is true, all lives matter, no one is denying that, but you're taking away the spotlight from the group whom it is about. So I get goosebumps talking about this, because what I'm trying to say is, yes, all practices need to become more neuro-affirming, but we mustn't wash away the whole curriculum at the same time. And we need to keep in mind that we will always need to tailor practices and the way we teach, as is required on the spot in the moment, and that we can't always plan for that. We can bring awareness to the situation, but we might have to make the adjustments in the moment. And finally, that we come from a place of support, and that it's no one's fault that somebody is the way that they are. So nobody needs to be fixed. So this whole approach to the awareness is that it mustn't be like an add-on to something. It has to be something, an integral part of the fabric of teaching mindfulness. I don't know if any of that made sense. It made good sense in my head, but those were sort of the key things that I wanted to communicate.
Yeah, very much so. It needs to be not strapped on with baling wire and duct tape. It needs to be part of this. And that ties in, Liezl, with what you were saying about we'd like to become redundant. We'd like this to simply be part of how we teach. I would add into that, there's still going to be a need for constant awareness and refreshing and monitoring. So it's not a complete redundancy. It's awareness that things change and we learn more stuff. So for those who are here today, I hope you got something out of this conversation. I will have links where links are found to a number of resources around this, including the tips book that we have been talking around today. Our guest today, Liezl Laidlaw, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It was lovely to be here.
And Christoph Spiessens, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Ted. Lovely experience again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your attention today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please do tap that subscribe button if you do. It helps people to find this podcast, and I'd appreciate your assistance with that gentle tap. And remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can. And I'll see you again soon on Mindfulness Voyage.